What if, just what if, everything you see, everything you are, the entire universe, could spring into being from just one simple act? And not a physical act, but a purely mental one. Today, we're diving into a really radical idea about the very foundation of reality itself.
So that brings us to the big question, right? What is reality really made of? What's its ultimate building block? Is it an atom, some tiny particle? Or is it something else, something completely different?
We're all taught to think of reality as being made of, well, things, stuff, like atoms or particles, pre-existing objects that are just out there, waiting for us to find them. But what if that's totally backward? What if reality isn't built from things at all, but from acts, like the act of making a choice, or asking a question, or drawing a line between one thing and another? An operation that doesn't just describe what it finds, but actually creates what we see.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we've got to start with us. Here's a crucial point, maybe the crucial point. Our universe is always, and I mean always, mediated by our perception. We never ever get to see bare reality as it is. Everything we experience is already filtered, organized, and kind of pre-chewed by our own minds.
So what's the most basic, the most fundamental act our mind can perform? Well, it's making what's called the first distinction. It's that simple, but world-shattering separation of I from not I. That simple act, that little mental cut, is what constructs the entire world for us in the very first place.
There's this sociologist, Niklas Luhmann, who just nailed this with a beautiful, kind of paradoxical idea. He said basically, to say I, you must have already separated yourself from everything you are not. Just let that sink in for a second. The very idea of a self can't even get off the ground without first drawing a line in the sand between me and everything else.
So that begs the question, right? What was there before that first slice? Before the I and the not I? Well, a lot of philosophical and contemplative traditions have a name for it. They call it primordial consciousness. Imagine a state of just pure, undivided presence. No separation between you, the observer, and the thing being observed. It's just one seamless whole, the undifferentiated cosmic goo from which all these distinctions we make eventually pop out. And here's where it gets really wild. This idea of a fundamental distinction, a cut, it's not just for philosophers. It has this incredible parallel in the world of hard physics. And that brings us to this iconic little phrase from the legendary physicist John Archibald Wheeler, it from bit. This is the bridge that connects the act of seeing to the very stuff of reality.
Okay, so what on earth does it from bit actually mean? Well, the it is pretty much everything we think of as physical reality, right? Matter, energy, space, time, the whole shebang. The bit, that's the simplest possible piece of information, a yes or no answer, a 1 or a 0. Wheeler's absolutely radical idea was that the physical it emerges from the informational bit.
How is that even possible? Well, think of it like a conversation with the cosmos. In quantum physics, when an observer makes a measurement, let's say they ask, "Hey, electron, is your spin up or down?" That very question forces nature, which was just hanging out in a state of pure potential, to make a choice. It has to answer, and nature gives back a single bit of information, up. And just like that, a definite property that literally didn't exist a moment before is created, all because someone asked a question.
So you really have to let this one land because it's a total mind-bender. Information isn't just describing reality, like taking notes on a pre-existing world. In this view, information creates it. Every time we observe, every question we ask, we are helping to weave the very fabric of the cosmos.
All right, so that's the physical world. Pretty wild. But what about the purely abstract world? Ideas, concepts. What about something like numbers? If reality is built from these distinctions, can we build something like numbers from nothing too?
Well, turns out we can, and to do it, we need a starting point. In the world of math, that ultimate starting point is something called the empty set. It's literally a set that has nothing in it, 0 elements. It's pure potential, a kind of mathematical nothingness. And you see where this is going, right? This is an incredible parallel. The empty set is the mathematical version of that primordial consciousness we were talking about earlier.
Okay, now watch this, because this is just so cool. From that absolute nothing, we can build everything. We start by just deciding. We define the number 0 as the empty set. Okay, step 1.
Then the number 1 becomes the set that contains the empty set. Boom, there's our first distinction. The number 2, that's the set containing both 0 and 1. You see the pattern? Every single number is just the set of all the numbers that came before it. The entire universe of arithmetic built from making one distinction on top of nothing.
And this just lays out this incredibly deep analogy for us. On one side, you have primordial consciousness, the raw material of all experience, pure potential before that first cut. And on the other side, you have the empty set, the foundation of all mathematics, pure potential before the first element is defined. It's the exact same fundamental pattern, just playing out in 2 totally different realms. Mind-blowing, right?
All right, let's switch gears again and jump over to logic, because this pattern shows up there too, and helps build a case for existence itself. There's this really fascinating logical principle with a fancy name, consequentia mirabilis. The idea is actually pretty simple. If trying to prove that something is false accidentally ends up proving that it's true, well, then it must have been true all along. It's a way for something to prove its own existence, just from pure logic. Okay, so let's try it. Let's apply this to our own consciousness. Go ahead, try to genuinely deny that you're conscious. The very act of forming the thought, I am not conscious, well, it requires a conscious mind to do the thinking. The attempt to deny it is the ultimate proof of its existence. It's a perfect loop. Consciousness is self-founding. It's a logical necessity.
Okay, so we've bounced from consciousness to physics, from math to logic. So what's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean for us, for you and me, and our place in this huge, mysterious cosmos?
Well, it means we have to make a pretty big shift in how we see things. The old view, let's call it the spectator universe, imagined reality as this finished object, like a giant clock, and we're just passive observers on the sidelines, figuring out how it works. But the new view, Wheeler's view, is what he called the participatory universe. Here, the universe isn't a finished object. It's a process that's constantly being created. And reality emerges from this ongoing conversation, this dialogue, between us and the cosmos.
And this is why this whole idea matters so much. It means we aren't just these tiny, separate specks of dust in a vast, cold, indifferent universe. No, we are the way the universe gets to know itself. Our observations, our questions, those simple little acts of distinction we make every second, they're actively helping to weave the very fabric of reality. The universe is this infinite dialogue, and every single moment is our chance to take part.
And that leaves us with one last, really powerful thought to take away. If reality truly is a dialogue, a conversation that we're having with the universe, every moment of every day, then the only real question left is, what question are you going to ask next?